Hello, guys. Thank you for inviting me here. I was introduced as a senior research fellow of INSS, and this time I'm talking as a person, as a foreign, North Korean. So I do not represent our institute, INSS. My job today is to brief about North Korea, what's going on there, and I'll do my best to provide, a big picture of North Korea now, and then later on, detailed items about issues of North Korea. First of all, the bigger picture, the general picture of North Korea, they still continue dictatorship by another third great leader, and North Korea's Workers' Party. And as for the nuclear issue, unchanged nuclear armament policy. And then, of course, their slogan is still socialist slogan, socialism and self-reliance. Economically, they pursue self-reliance. And then the North Korea's human rights situation, there is unchanged dire human rights violations. And their foreign policy, anti-United States, anti-Japanese versus pro-China and Russia. There is no big change in their direction. And then their policy toward South Korea, they pursue dominant position in politics and military power over South Korea. They continue this, strategy. Now, in North Korea, the biggest issue is celebrating the 10th anniversary of Kim Jong-un's ruling. That is the biggest issue at the moment. They gave him all possible, names, including the general secretary of the party, and Kim Jong-unism appeared. And then his words, his great words appeared on North Korea's, only, and not only, but, the best, the biggest, newspaper, 노동신문. And then they began to call him great leader. Actually, Kim Il-sung was called as a great leader. Kim Jong-il was dear leader, and Kim Jong-un was, called as a marshal. But now they begin to call him as the great leader. So they, continue this, deification, and it is running at its peak, celebrating the 10th anniversary of Kim Jong-un's ruling. And we can see that, his close aides, Cho Young-won, now the secretary in charge of OGD, Organization's Department of Workers' Party of Korea, and his sister Kim Yo-jong and Hyun Sung-wol, a singer, former singer. Three of them, appeared on the screen that wearing these long leather jackets, showing that they are the real power closest to, Kim Jong-un. So, of course, Kim Jong-un's father, Kim Jong-il, he himself, cared a lot his close aides, and sometimes the supreme command of North Korea's, army, the members of that, command, they wear the same, jackets, but not this, way. They are wearing the leather, long coats, and I think Kim Jong-un is relying more and more on this small, aides group of power. So maybe someday it will be a kind of replica of, lessons in Romania. At that time, dictator Ceausescu gave power to his son and to his wife, so I think it will produce someday a serious problem in North Korea. And I'd like to talk about Kim Jong-un's leadership. He was the side branch. In North Korea, their power, this side branch and main branch is very important. And Kim Jong-il stick to that main branch, and he purged all the stepbrothers and then took power. But this time for Kim Jong-un, he was a side branch, so he brutally purged all the main branch, including his uncle Jang Song-taek and the stepbrother Kim Jong-nam. This is very very important point of North Korea when you look into North Korea's power. And Kim Jong-un is trying to duplicate his grandfather Kim Il-sung, and now the power is centered on the Workers' Party. His father, placed more importance on the army, some military first policy, but now it's different. He rehabilitated the party-centered ruling. So in the past, the Workers' Party, gathering, a great meeting, a big meeting, they call it assembly, was a great celebration and was a rare occasion. But now they are regularly, calling this, assemblies, and also other decision-making procedures. So rehabilitation of all this party-centered policy and ruling. And of course, we have seen that Kim Jong-un did perform this active, summit diplomacies toward United States and South Korea. He met, several times, South Korean president and also former President Trump. So this is different picture, now. And they pursued, brinkmanship in completing and demonstrating nuclear power. Kim Jong-un himself, mentioned about that. In the last 5 years, he performed the kind of life and death inevitable path of completing their course, their nuclear power. He mentioned like that, so they perform this kind of brinkmanship. And then now, from last year, North Korea is overwhelmed with this corona pandemic, and from the beginning, they just closed down all the border trade and all traveling, everything. So it's already 2 years, and I can say that very extreme policy, very decisive, sealing policy at all costs against COVID-19, and they still maintain this, policy. And I'd like to talk about the detailed, issues going on in North Korea. Of course, as I mentioned, corona pandemic, the emergency, system, they built up that, and then still going on. And there were some signs and, movements to open up the road trade with, China, but still, they stopped that because of this serious, problem in this COVID-19 disease. And they're trying to introduce, all modern IT and modern, technologies, including this untagged meeting through online, system and education and even, exhibition. They are doing this untact online. So trying their best, to introduce, to update themselves. And then in Pyongyang, 10,000, the construction of 10,000, houses, and at that, Botonggang, Botong River, very special, very privileged, restricted area. They are building now 800, houses, and it will be presented as a gift of Kim Jong-un to the elite of North Korean leadership. And a few days ago, Kim himself, visited Samjiyon city, and for 4 or 5 years, I think, they built that city. They called it a revolutionary site, and now it is almost at the end. So he visited that, city, and Kim Jong-un tried to resume the, providing milk, food to all, the how do you call it? 타가서 유치원, this, yeah, kindergartens and babies, yes, yeah, nurseries and kindergartens. It is rare resuming because they suffered, hard times because of that, arduous March period and the collapse of Eastern, Eastern Bloc. And they stopped this kind of provision, but Kim himself is trying to rehabilitate all these past socialist policies and provisions. So it's something important issue now in North Korea. And we have seen that they made the countrywide, helping campaign for the hard hit, flood area, like including South Hamgyong province and the Hwanghae, North Hwanghae province, And then this year is the first year of the second 5-year plan. So they put importance on this and completing the plan, and so it is another big issue there. And the Workers' Party of Korea, they produced another way of working method, making models, good models, and then following it and sharing the good, habits and good experiences like that. They are trying to introduce another way of work. And then they still, putting importance on this collectivism, helping each other, and devotion to each other, and making a very friendly, family of North Korea like that. It is a kind of, socialist picture and way of life. They're trying to emphasize that, And also recycling is another big issue in North Korea, and planting trees and rehabilitating these mountains and these bold mountains is also a very important issue at the moment. This is the illustration of what's going on in North Korea at the moment. And as for the nuclear issue, they continue to produce more nuclear material and try to develop, more sophisticated, modern, long and medium-range missiles, carriers, and SLBM, and they're trying their best to produce more and develop more. And then their South Korean policy, overwhelmed by COVID-19. So COVID-19 is priority. Their other stuff is next to that. So we are seeing that in the last 2 years, everything all stopped now. And also Kim Jong-un's sister, is in charge of this South Korean issue and U.S. issue, important issue, of course, even though she takes the position at the propaganda department of the party. So this is another special, different picture of North Korea in Kim Jong-un's era. And I can say that they are now in a mode of confronting or dealing with the next regime in South Korea, because there will be another presidential election in coming March. So I think they are preparing for that. Their foreign policy and also their U.S. policy. Of course, COVID situation is their priority, and they have a conclusion, and they are saying on several occasions that there is no change in USA's hostile policy against North Korea. There is no difference. They made that conclusion. And they still did not start the real game with new Biden administration. That is my, command. And expect more actions from North Korea at the time of South Korea's next presidential election and ending of COVID-19 pandemic. Rather negative. I am seeing rather negative. There will be more aggressive. And from this month, November, there was some signs that they opened their border to China again and resume road trade again, but stopped because of this pandemic problem. So we will see what will happen, again in coming month. And this is all of my preparation and presentation, and I'd like to talk more deeply with a Q&A with you. Thank you.
Okay, we are back. This is now our third Q&A session. Is there anyone who's been here the whole time? If you have, please just say something like, hi, I'm still here, still alive. And if you have questions, now is the time to go ahead and type them in the chat. And we have some time with Mr. Kim. And so, but actually, one question I had based on what you said is you said that it's going to be a big issue for the 10th anniversary of Kim Jong-un taking power. Okay, what do you expect to happen? And what do you think would be a good response from the outside world? Should they cover this as a big event? Should they try to ignore it? How should people outside of North Korea respond?
Actually, they gave to their leader, Kim Jong-un, the general secretary, new name, new brand, general secretary of the party, and they began to call his idea as Kim Jong-unism. And then, he became another deified leader of North Korea, another Kim Il-sung. So, and their propaganda and everything is focusing on that, deifying Kim Jong-un and, celebrating his, accomplishments during the past 10 years and all this internal stuff, of course. And of course, they, boast his accomplishments, in South Korean policy and also in the U.S. Foreign policy. So this is their own internal celebration, and the outside world, because of this pandemic, everything is what North Korea closed itself, is self-imposing containment, and so there is nothing that we can do to their 10th celebration. Yeah.
So what I mean is that, what's the response from North Korea knowing that so many people in the outside world talk about it? That they make fun of Kim Jong-un. A lot of people used to call him fat, but obviously he's lost some weight. What's the response from North Korea? Are they like, yeah, hey, they're talking about our leader? Or is it, so what's the response? So then when they're having the 10th anniversary, does it make sense to cover it as a big deal?
They don't care what's going on outside, and they don't care what the others are looking at North Korea, They until now, for decades, they didn't care. Sometimes, to their necessities, to their for their own terms, they care what is, being said about their leader in South Korea. They sometimes care, but usually they have their own stuff, important issues internally, so they usually don't care.
They don't really care. Okay, good. That's interesting. June says that she is from Singapore and that you obviously were based in Singapore. So what was your impression of it?
Actually, when I was there for the first time, I looked. Singapore was like a paradise, It's like every picture, every scene, high buildings and the scenery, everything was like in a paradise, and also was like a picture that I have seen only, in books. That is my first impression.
Okay. And then Brent Paul. Yes, there's been a lot of coverage in the news, obviously, about Kim Jong-un looking thinner, and some people don't know if it's really him. But do you think he's actually making efforts to be healthier, or is it because he has surgery that he looks thinner?
Actually, putting on weight was intentional, I understand, because, at the beginning, he looked very young. Too young to be a great leader in North Korea, and it doesn't help him to, become really a great leader. So in North Korea, in their, culture, he needs to put that weight, be fat. So I think, it was an intentional, but he put, more fat, and I think 140 something, and it is no good. So trying to reduce that, I suppose, and maybe some illnesses and some surgeries, maybe he did that. But now, from the scenes, from some of these scenes, we can see that he looked very tired, and lose, some appetite, But everybody is suffering that, actually, So we will see what was his real condition in coming years and months.
Okay. Well, Bethany says that there are many people who say that there's a personality cult around Kim Jong-un. Can you explain a little more about that? But I guess it's been all of the dictators that they have a personality cult. What is the personality cult around Kim Jong-un?
He himself, tried to show. Of course, he, from the beginning, try to copy his grandfather, because the third generation succession is no good even in North Korea. So to try to cover that, bad image. He used his grandfather's almighty image and, authority, so that there will be no big challenge to himself. And he used that, tried to copy that. And in the other hand, trying to show his own, expertise, his own picture. For that personality qualities, we have seen that he showed some tears in front of their own people, and some policies, more emphasis on loving of their people, provision of milk to these kindergartens, and building up more investing more on this social 사회복지, social welfare, social welfare. So he's trying to show himself, his own face and his own picture to their own people.
Okay. Now, Roger says that the perception is that Kim Jong-un doesn't care about what the international community thinks, and you just mentioned that people don't, that the regime doesn't really care what people say about it. So then Roger asked, how can we change this? So I guess, how can we get the North Korean regime to care about what the international community thinks?
More exposure towards the outside world, more connectivity. I should have called it, connectivity. So we need to have more connectivity to the majority of North Koreans rather than the leadership of North Korea. Then, they should take care of that. And if they close themselves, and if we ourselves close North Korea, then I think there will less connectivity, less opportunity for kind of interaction. So that is the only solution I believe.
Now, our second speaker, actually Kim Dong-soo, we've talked a couple of times before, and he says that all three of you, our speakers today, that you know each other, you've known each other for quite a while. What happened to Jong Sung-taek? Hope I said his name right.
Yes,
Oh, sorry, Jang. Sorry, Jang.
Kim Jong's uncle, actually, I worked in his, organization. He was killed by, Kim Jong-un, and as a second man in the former regime, Kim Jong-il's, regime, he enjoyed all privileges, and he was the closest aide to Kim, the dictator. But he didn't understand well about the logic of dictatorship and power. So to him, maybe there were two, chances. One is to serve Kim Jong-un, the other one just disappear, go to the rural area or countryside and live quietly. But he didn't take that two, choices. He was seen as a challenge, big challenge to Kim Jong-un. So they just purged him, killed him.
Right. Now, there's talk about how they killed him.
There were, some allegations, but I believe that he was not buried in North Korea. His body might have gone, to pieces. I believe. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. But you knew him and all.
Yes.
Knew him, right?
I worked for him, and yes.
Okay. Dylan. Okay, also one of our supporters and for quite a while. It says, can you talk a little about who benefits from the social welfare investments that Kim Jong-un has been making, but kindergarten and other ways he's been trying to have a different kind of face?
Every dictator, they should have to show some good, faces good policies, towards their own people. Without that, how can they rule their own country? So that is that part of, a dictator's, policy, and he's emphasizing politically, and it is very important, to gain support from people and from the majority in any way. So that is that part of his policy, and they are, building some facilities for the senior people, for the orphans, and also, for providing milk to, nurseries and also kindergarten. So they benefit themselves, not 100% of course, but some part of that.
Okay. Now, can you talk about your work when you were in North Korea? What is it that you were doing for the government when you were in Singapore?
Actually, I worked for KFIC, that is called Korean Foreign Insurance Company, and it was run by Jang Song-taek and affiliated not to the cabinet but to the North Korea's Workers' Party, Jang's organization OGD, and our job is to earn foreign cash, 20 million cash a year, and present it as a birthday gift to Kim Jong-il. That was our main job, and this KFIC ran our bank and also other businesses, including the reinsurance, trade, ship management, and other, manufacturing stuff.
Okay.
I worked as a fund manager of Revolution Fund allocated to Zhang's organization.
Okay. So you're doing this work, making money for the regime, and then you left. So what is it that made you leave that nice position?
Actually, yeah, it was a nice position, and of course, I was, sent to Singapore as an agent. But my background, of education and my family, and during my university period, the Eastern Bloc fell down, and I experienced all this hardship of that, late 1990s and 2000. So I was very critical of North Korean regime. Even I was given that part of job, and it took years for me to take that position, and I ran through all those hardships. So I was very critical of North Korea, and I spoke openly about that while staying in Singapore. So that made me in trouble, put me in trouble, and they suspected that important information was being leaked from our KFIC branch in Singapore. And I myself, heard it from several of my bosses. So I, felt very nervous and, find myself, in very serious position. So I decided to leave North Korea.
So what does the regime say about, you and Tae Yong-ho and Kim Dong-soo, former insiders who now have left? I'm sure they spread rumors about you and maybe allegations and talk bad about you and target your family. So what is it that they say about you, or what is it that they do?
Actually, we all have our families and relatives and friends, in North Korea, and we know so well about, their attitude, their policy against us and against our families. So actually, for myself, I didn't try to contact my family, and I didn't try to make more trouble, to, make more problems, issues to my family there. So actually, I didn't try to know what they, say about myself and also, other stuff. But of course, we all know that if somebody is very a big challenge to North Korean regime, then they act for that. So they threaten to kill, and and even they let their relatives, or brothers, or family members to appear on the screen and become a burden to the defectors. We have all seen about that in the past.
Okay, well, okay, wait, don't move the screen now. Okay, so Joel asked about the North Korean celebrities, but I want to expand it a little. Which North Koreans North Korean escapees do they consider to be a threat? I mean, there's some who are involved in political activity, they're analysts, they're authors, they're speakers. So there seem to be different levels of North Koreans who've escaped. So is there a ranking of we really hate those people, and these people we just hate them a little, and then these people we don't really care about?
Actually, more than 30,000 defectors, they left North Korea. And of course, North Korean regime hate all of them. And yeah, sure. But they, and in the past, when there were very few defectors, they punished their families very seriously. But now they cannot do that. And from one point, Kim Jong-il tried to say that, don't make more enemies, because they cannot handle that much, that more, which means, 30,000, if they handled all the same way, then they will make maybe 100, a million, maybe a million enemies in North Korea, inside North Korea. So, when they punish all these, family members and also relatives, they will make a million enemies. So from one point, they try to change that policy, So the bigger challenge, more threat, and open, in South Korea or in the international, screen, if they see somebody as, or regard somebody as more threat to their regime, to their leader, then they distinguish them as, more threats to the regime.
Okay, now Irene asked the question, do you think there's a possibility that North Korea will completely run out of food in the near future? And okay, I don't know how this is possible, but would the North Korean elite be forced to share their excess with the poor? Do you understand that question, or how to respond to it?
The first part,
Okay,
let me tell, I don't think they will run out of food. Pandemic and self-imposing sanction almost closed down 100%-ish, but still 2 years they, endured, they passed that, already 2 years passed, so, but still they're doing pretty well. And worst time, my understanding is worst time has passed already, because from now on or next year, with the coming down of this pandemic, I think they will reopen their border. So the worst period would have been from this spring to maybe August, that several months. So I don't think they will have that kind of time running out of food.
Okay, Gunnar asked, what do you see as the biggest weakness in the regime right now? So what?
Weakness means?
Weakness, okay, Deputy? Yeah.
Weakness. Pandemic, Corona, is the sanction. The international community couldn't have put this kind of sanction on North Korea, so their weakness is right now coronavirus. Weakest point. And then again, connectivity actually, if more connected, they will have more informations, and the regime itself will become weaker.
Okay, now this is a pointed question from Bethany. So workers in the labor camps reportedly produce products that get exported to foreign countries, says such as France. Do you know anything about which countries trade with North Korea and products that are produced in those camps? So I guess they're, the slave labor in the labor camps, concentration camps, whatever they call them, that they then send those products to other countries. So I guess she's concerned that people are buying products from, forced labor.
As for this, industrial products, I don't think they can sell anything. Maybe 가발이 뭐죠? 가발?
Wigs, okay.
그다음에 임가공, 피복 임가공이라고. 옷 그 수선하고 만들고.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe, but I don't think they will let them work on that. So for the industrial products, for any commodities, I don't think they can sell anything to the outside. But this food, agriculture, and herbs from mountains, and some, mushrooms, like that, this agricultural product, they can sell it. And the biggest buyer is, of course, China.
Okay, now I want to clear something up. So Joel now is celebrating. He says, wow, the policy has changed toward the families of North Korean celebrity defectors who remain in North Korea. Now, you're not saying that they don't try to punish them. So, you might want to clarify what you mean as far as their attacks and targeting of people.
Actually, North Korea, everyone has his own records. And it includes their immediate family and also relatives. 8,000, 천이 뭐라고 하네? 천. 아니, 천수, 천. 2,000, 3,000, 3,000. 천수를 8,000이라고 할 때 뭐라고 하나요? 천.
We're having a discussion here. Okay.
Yeah, so
okay.
Yeah. So everyone has his own records, and that records includes the records of their immediate family and relatives. And the more important person has more records of these relatives. We call it eighth relative. So if there's any big problem among these relatives, then he cannot promote. And if it's very serious, and they all distinguish people into different categories: hostile group, wavering group, and pro-North Korean regime group. The three main. So when somebody is put in distinguished in that category, they cannot enjoy privilege there. No promotion, no good education and everything, housing, everything. That means if 30,000 defectors, if they treat them all in the same way, that means they will have this 1 million enemy in North Korea, because they distinguish them as the worst status of population, hostile group, and then they themselves know that they are treated. They cannot go to the better college. So that means they are making 1 million enemy inside North Korea. So they gave up that, which means, of course, they distinguished them, but they didn't punish them as seriously as before. All of them, yeah.
Okay, Yeah, because I don't want people like celebrating. Ooh, they don't punish them. It's that they can't kill everybody. I think is the point. So so they have to be a little more targeted than before. So it's not that they don't punish people. Yeah, so I think that might be a better way to put it. Now, at the very beginning, you mentioned that the North Korean government is still pursuing self-reliance. Now, I guess my question is has their definition of self-reliance changed over the decades? Whereas, it might have been different under Kim Il-sung compared to Kim Jong-un. So has it remained consistently the same?
Yeah, the main concept is the same. Different, generation, a little bit different word they use because to make a distinction. But the main concept is the same: self-reliance in their own economy. And nowadays they are, talking more about that, self-reliance in 원료, materials, making their own products, 국산화, their own national products of the materials, fuels. Yeah, they're talking more about that nowadays because of this corona pandemic, of course.
Okay. Here's a personal question for you from Eben Appleton. Do you ever feel your life is in danger?
Of course.
Then I should feel in danger because I'm next to you.
Of course, but if we express that, we feel that every time, and shrink, then we cannot work, we cannot live, so just we abandon sometimes everything and then live our daily life.
Now, can you tell these people that I'm in no danger? Some people think that I'm in danger because I work with North Korean refugees, but I don't think the North Korean government knows about me. I don't think they'll even waste a bullet on me. Please tell them I'm not in danger. Until today, I'm sitting next to you, so.
One thing is, the real danger, and the other one is psychological danger. And North Koreans, they know how North Korean region, how brutal they are, and they used to live in that system and in that culture. So psychologically, everybody is suffering that kind of danger since they leave North Korea, their home. But of course, with the passage of time, reduce. But anyhow, we're having that kind of problem too.
Okay. All right. Oh, thank you for showing me this question. So Bethany said, I read somewhere that North Korea is involved in drug production for financial gain. Is this true?
Sure. Military and maybe some spying agencies, they were involved. And during the, this arduous March period, the people, they have to sell anything in the market to survive. So some products from chemical factories and plants leaked out and then were in the market, and expansion, more circulations of that and more addicted to that. So I think it is getting serious problem in North Korea now.
Okay. Now, earlier, to me, it's very interesting. You said that the North Korean government doesn't really pay attention to what people in the outside world are saying. I don't know if you know, but there are lots of people who want to talk to Kim Jong-un. They want to meet him and criticize him or punch him or all kinds of things. Do you think that the North Korean... Okay, so if people had a chance to talk to Kim Jong-un, do you think that there would be any value in that?
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah, that is another connectivity, another exposure. And if only anybody can meet Kim Jong-un and can have a chat, can, let him, if we can put him to more exposure and connectivity, then it's a good thing.
But it's unlikely.
No, they refuse to do that.
Okay, yeah.
They control that, and they are trying their best to put the North Korean regime itself, doing their best to put him at the best, platform and, show.
Yeah. So there'd be no such opportunity.
No.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you for telling people that. Okay. So we have about 5 minutes left. I don't know if there are any other questions. Did we miss any? No, we didn't miss any. Okay. All right. So then we'll give you a chance if you have like a final statement or something that you'd like to say that we did not ask you.
Actually, dictatorship cannot last forever. And we cannot predict the future of anything, at this time. And, rightly, we didn't predict maybe this COVID pandemic. We didn't predict that, in Libya, what would happen to Gaddafi. And we didn't predict that, the Soviet, social communist Soviet Union collapsed. So nobody can be sure that, when or how the North Korean regime will be over. That is, so I really want to believe that that time, that day will come someday. And the other one is, it is maybe almost 100% true that the change and big change usually comes from inside, not outside. And from that change, we can have a real change. So I think that would be the future of the current North Korean regime. So if we try to do our best to have more connectivity to the majority of North Korean people rather than the leadership there, then I think someday we will have all solutions, including nuclear issue, human rights issue, economic issue, humanitarian issue of North Korea.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. First time to meet you and very happy to hear your insights and analysis on things. And now I know all of these diplomats who are hated by North Korea. This is fantastic. So, all right. So we're going to take a short break and we'll be back, introduce some of our upcoming events and closing statement or whatever. Okay. But we'll be back in just a moment.